Hello, Super Squad, and welcome back to the truck. Today we are going to be doing another rogue recording, a very quick update. I'm just using my phone here. I've got my microphone. I did have one of those fancy handheld things to make it more stable, but it collapses halfway through, so I've given up on it. So I'm going to be holding the phone, so I apologize. This is just very not fancy. But what we're going to be doing today in this quick little update video is talking about day 5 Lori Daybell Trial. I made some notes. I just want to give my thoughts, updates for people who aren't watching with us on the podcast channel over here for the main channel. And again, these are just things that stick out to me. I am not present in the courtroom, so I'm just watching it from the sofa, you know how we do it. So that being said, I have my computer behind me right here, or in front of me, but behind the camera. So I'm going to be referencing it and whatnot. Now, so day 5, the first person up there is the medical examiner. And there was a lot of things that came out in day 5 that while there might not have been explosive drama, like we're getting into some of the hardcore evidence, the bam, 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 here's the facts. There you go. Okay. So medical examiner gets up there. He says that Charles could have maybe only lived for a few minutes after he received these wounds. He could have spoken. He could have moved his hand, the reference he put in the hand where the bullet wound was. There were knee abrasions, so it looks like he did go down to his knees at some point and then collapse. Now, pardon me, Lori on cross-examination will bring up a couple of things. And one of the key things that she'll bring up is number one, that bamboo shirt. Can't roll my eyes hard enough. The bamboo shirt's very important to her, as well as where people parked. Okay. So the next thing though is she'll bring up, would a drug test show testosterone or human growth hormone in Charles's system? And, and she's trying to go with roid rage. She's trying to go with that was the energy that was there. Okay. Now the jury will come back with a question, and it's basically about his heart beating and blood and stuff like this. And essentially, to me, what we took from this testimony was that if it was really self-defense, which we know it wasn't, we've been following this case for a while. This was an ambush. This was what it is. The jury, however, should not be privy to the information that we know. If it really was that, he would have been, the threat was gone after the first bullet, right? This was a murder, okay? And I think personally for myself, that part showed that, like, okay, so this is overkill. Oftentimes, even in a situation of self-defense, where it's like, once the threat is gone, there's no need to continue. You've disarmed the threat, get help, right? Now, again, we've already learned what's Lori's version of getting help: going to Burger King, getting some flip-flops, and laughing on camera, okay? Now, so there's that. Next, we have some very bad testimony for Lori, and that is the Social Security special agent, fraud person. Okay, so I'm just going to read some of these notes because this was very confusing testimony, and not because of the dude up on the stand, but because of Lori. Now, they established, yes, Tylee Ryan was receiving benefits for the death of her father. Remember, Joe Ryan was Tylee's father. Now, at minimum, I was like this. Okay, so the jury should be putting together this. Okay, so Tylee's her daughter. Her dad was dead, so she was getting benefits. And now we're here on this trial for Charles. Well, what happened to the first dude? What happened to Tylee? This kind of stuff. So, Lori was the payee for Tylee. Lori told Social Security that her and Charles were living together at the time of his death. This is not true. JJ was going to get $1,951 a month plus back pay. Lori was set to receive $1,951 as well. Okay, so again, you're seeing all this money. Now remember, for those of us who followed it, we know that she was doing the text messages after she learned that Kay got the inheritance from insurance, talking about, well, we'll still get this money over here. Always follow the money with Lori. Always follow the money. Okay, so Lori on cross, this is where she makes this so confusing. And I put here, it seems like she's trying to reapply for benefits. It literally felt like what she was doing was like personally questioning him how this worked to figure out, well, why didn't I get this money? Well, maybe I'm entitled to compensation. Let me call 1-800. You know what I'm saying? Like that, it literally was like she was filling out an application. Now, another thing that she did was essentially determine that this dude here, he's in fraud, right? So he doesn't know what's going on at the front desk when you walk into reapply type situation. So she's essentially being like, well, look, So you don't know what employee ABC at the front desk told me when I applied. That's what she's trying to get at. She also asked for his boss's name. This is a big thing today. She's writing manager letters. She's writing regional manager letters. Okay. Now, there's redirect. Then the jury has questions. The jury is basically like, were the payments stopped to Lori after the investigation? Yes. Did she notify of the new marriage? No. So at minimum, what they have shown 100%, amongst other things, is Social Security fraud. Remember, she was convicted of this already. And it becomes very obvious when you start doing dates and this and that. Now, Lori follows up with this. She tries to say that she went into the office in Hawaii to, change her address or whatever, and they must not have done it, because they're just whatever. So, but then they're like, look, we access the system. We see what's in Hawaii. It wasn't in there. You didn't do that. Okay. So again, with Social Security, at bare minimum, the jury can say, oh, okay, so she said she was doing ABC. These are the rules to do ABC with Social Security, and she was breaking those. And she knew she was breaking those because she lied. So she is a liar. Like, this absolutely, for me, showed the jury. And again, I'm trying to remove myself from knowing, like, what I know already about the case. So next up, very damning testimony, insurance. Okay, we get someone from up there from Robin from Banner Life Insurance. Now, there was a couple of phone calls between her and Lori. Okay, and they will eventually play these, right? Now, one of the phone calls is Lori initially calling where she learns, oh, I'm not the beneficiary. And essentially it's like, yeah, I'm sorry. And so there's two phone calls, right? There's another follow-up one that Robin does and Lori gets up with her. And essentially what Lori is trying to do overall in this phone call is, number one, talk about like, oh yeah, I mean, yeah, my Charles and I, we're in the business together and I know how this works. But on the stand, the insurance agent will say, it was kind of clear to me that she didn't know how it worked because of the questions that she was asking. And Lori is basically like, wow, I mean, so anyone can just go and change that. I mean, all these years of marriage and a 7-year-old autistic son and no money. What am I to do? We have 5 children. 100% trying to get sympathy from this woman to get what she wanted. And Robin's just like, oh, God, I'm so sorry. Oh, bless your heart. Oh, my goodness. I know that sucks. But she's like, but you ain't getting the information, which is what it's supposed to be for this very reason, right? So, again, listening to that, the jury, to me, would be able to see, she doesn't really know how that works, meaning Lori, about the insurance. She says she does. Not only are we seeing her trying to constantly pivot herself to the victim stance here in the courtroom, but she's also doing it on the phone from the get-go. She's using the kids as like pawns, like, oh, woe is me, I'm this, I'm that, blah, 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 blah. And I just feel like the jury is going to clearly see that, okay? Now, the next dude that gets up there is a firearms expert. Y'all, he was like this. This is the happiest man to do his job. He was like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, I'm here to teach y'all something. Yep, guess what? Absolutely love my work, golly jeepers. Okay. He was the energy, you wanted to vote for him, you wanted to give the man money, you wanted to take a class from him. Like, he had this great energy. Basically, to me, he establishes the bullets came from the gun. Okay, period, right? Bullets came from the gun. Now, next up, and this is going to be continued on into today, was Cassandra from the police department. Now, this went a couple of ways, y'all. Okay, because number one, and let me see what I put up here. So Lori gets up there. I'm going to do Lori's redirect first. She's like, were you a psychologist? Do you know how somebody should act? Lori also does this when people are like, yeah, she was a little bit calm for the situation. Lori's like, were the cops calm? Were you calm? Shouldn't I have been calm? She also shames the cop for wearing a gun while interviewing Tylee. But the cop, meaning Cassandra, is like, well, this wasn't this type situation. I thought she was a witness. That's normal, and Tylee's not like a little baby, right? So one thing that the state does is the interview that we've seen between this investigator and Lori is the one where it's right after they bring her in. Lori's laughing. She's doing this. And a lot of people had an issue in the comment, in the chat, as well as comment sections, where it just seems that it didn't matter what Lori said to the investigator. She just believed her verbatim. No questions asked. And I'm comparing this to when it first popped off, the case years ago, and this video came out versus now. And I still feel the same way. And even on the stand, where unfortunately for the cop, and I mean, she didn't get in trouble. I think she even got a promotion, right? Not from that, but I mean, it's just, this is how this works. So the prosecution is bringing up all these red flags that Lori's saying, and it's like, yeah, that was odd. Yeah, that was odd. And it's like, well, why wasn't anything done? Like, all of this was so bizarre. Even if you just isolated Lori's answers, and I think one thing that the jury saw too is that Lori would be answering a question and she would just kind of zone out. And then the cop would essentially feed her, prod her along. And again, it is what it is. It's done now, you know, but a lot of people had a lot of issues with this investigator. And even her demeanor on the stand was very off. She's probably embarrassed. She probably, maybe, I imagine several people, I would think, got a reprimanding of like, hello, this is what you don't do. When all these red flags are going on with an investigation, yeah, you don't ignore these. And so that was a general vibe. And so I literally was thinking when Lori got out there, I was like, Lori's probably going to gaslight her so bad. Lori will say something like, why wouldn't you ask me A, B, and C when it's so obvious that I killed him? Right? Like, that's to the point where some of Lori's questioning is. Lori will put everything aside and gaslight these witnesses because she's exploiting the fact that the jury doesn't know or shouldn't know a lot of the information. And so she's writing on the fact of like, well, they don't know this, so I'm going to say it. So that's what I put there. Now, I will say this. After today, I was like that, or after yesterday, overall, I was like 100%. The jury should be asking at this point, when are we going to hear from the children? Where are the children? What's going on? Why is this not happening? So now I'm getting a warning, y'all, that I'm running out of storage, so I'm going to cut this short. But that was it for today. So those are the main updates. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. We'll continue watching today. But yeah, I feel like they should be like, where are the children? Lori's a liar for sure, at minimum with Social Security. She constantly is gaslighting these investigators and whatnot. It was not a good day for Lori with black and white factual evidence. So that is it. I love y'all. I will see you soon.